Hello and welcome to Africa Today. I am Esther Mokwariola. If you have been following developments with leadership and governance across Africa in the last 8 months, then you would agree that politics is not for the faint-hearted, and being in the opposition is really the best position. In Zimbabwe, the momentum is building up ahead of elections in 2018, when the resilience of the opposition will be up against the experience of 93-year-old Robert Mugabe, who has been in power since the country gained independence in 1980. And so we ask, what are your thoughts on political developments in Zimbabwe as opposition parties form alliance to take on the ruling ZANU-PF ahead of elections next year? You can join the conversation and share your thoughts with us on Twitter at TVC News NG. We take a report and Africa Today will continue. Welcome on board.
Zimbabwe's main opposition leader, Morgan Tsvangirai, has reunited with his former allies to form a coalition aimed at ending President Robert Mugabe's nearly 4-decade hold on power in next year's elections. At a rally in the capital on Saturday, the opposition Movement for Democratic Change leader told supporters he had agreed an alliance with former deputy Welshman Nkube and close aide Tendai Biti, as well as 4 other opposition factions to go against Mugabe's ZANU-PF party. Among the signatories is the Zimbabwe People First Party, led by war veteran and former diplomat Agrippa Mutambara.
We need a legitimate government that is able to rally the whole country towards a more positive future than what has been happening. So we are not waiting. We are a political party. We are mobilizing and organizing and regrouping to make sure that we win the next election. If people are talking of divisions in MDC, what would you say what is happening in ZANU-PF? Those are not divisions. Those are earth-shaking breakaways. And so they want to equalize what is happening in ZANU-PF to MDC. Of course, as a party, we are a party that is so huge. Obviously, it has got its own internal mechanisms of tensions, like any other normal party. But that does not in any way equate to ZANU-PF's internal fissures that are taking place there.
The agreement maximizes Tsvangirai's chances of unseating Mugabe next year, as it avoids multiple opposition candidates competing for the same parliamentary seats.
On September the 4th, Zimbabwe's mobile registration exercise began, with the leader of the Movement for Democratic Change, Morgan Tsvangirai, calling on the country's Electoral Commission to ensure that eligible Zimbabweans are able to register to vote. And the main opposition looks to test its strength at the polls in 2018, despite being unsuccessful in all attempts since the party was formed in 1999. Joining me in the studio on Africa Today, I have Olayinka Daniels, lawyer and a political analyst in Nigeria. And on Skype, I have Nigel Mogami, political analyst, entrepreneur, and founder 263 Chat in Zimbabwe. Good to have you both on the program.
Thank you.
Now, let me begin with you, Olayinka. Let's look at what the MDC has done following this, election coming up next year. The MDC, as of today, has taken Mugabe to court over the recent declaration of voters' registration dates, and it argues that Mugabe cannot proclaim the registration dates before the electoral body procures the biometric voters registration server, which is meant to store data. Now, what are your thoughts on this, and how likely now do you think the ruling party, that's the ZANU-PF, has a case to answer in court?
Well, let's start by saying a ruling party, we all know, particularly in Africa, a ruling party has this advantage of manipulating the system when it comes to election. I mean, yes, You have how many days to the election? Now, between this time, then you want some registration to be made. I mean, that should be left to the ZEC, that is Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. You are not to interfere. You are a party in this. You are contesting an election. Then there's no reason, like, okay, well, I don't know the reason why the ZEC is not made an independent, because I didn't see that. Because seriously, it's more like the subsisting government, the ruling party, is still in control of the entire system. Because even if you look at it, since inception from 1999, this is more like the first time ever even the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is handling this whole thing, because the whole saga was with the registrar, the ministry, the registrar of Registrar General handling this. Up to this day, this is absolutely wrong. Now tell me how you expect the opposition or any other person to think that this election is going to be free and fair. This is what you've been doing year in, year out. However, we should also look at it this way. Yes, we are saying that this is the first time they are transferring the power to ZEC. Fine. Let's give them an opportunity. Yes, the opposition have every right to contest this. They have every right to go to court.
But do you think now that they would have, as in the court, rule in their favor, knowing that, you know, the ZEC has every authority from the ZANU-PF? Well,
in my opinion, we will, I will say, let's just watch and see. If we have a government, even when we are the wife, determine what happened in the cabinet, then let me see whether the opposition will be able to get a fair ruling from the court on this particular situation.
And if they fail to, what do you think should be the last option?
Well, it's either they say, okay, let's give it a trial. Or they say, well, this election can't go on. Then they go to the appropriate authority. Zimbabwe is a country. Don't forget, they are also part of the system. You know, they're part of the African Union, so that can be they can be called into order. The system, the government can be called into order to checkmate what they are doing.
All right. Let me quickly come to Nigel. Nigel, if you can hear me now, what are your thoughts on the ongoings in Zimbabwe as the people were registered to vote?
Thank you very much for having me. I think that the process has obviously started last Thursday. I think we obviously need more time. My journalists were out on the streets today trying to figure out how the process is going. And the general feedback is that the process is a little bit slower than expected. So obviously we hope to see some improvements and obviously going forward to ensure that as many more people can actually register to vote.
All right, let's look at the strengths of the opposition in Zimbabwe. How formidable can you describe the opposition this time around, having failed on several attempts to, well, garner some level of, win, that is to say, in elections?
You know, so obviously I'm based here in Harare. The Harare City Council is controlled by the opposition. But when you actually see, compare the last 5 years now to previous periods, you'll see that there's some challenges for them in terms of experience from the government to the above the local government. There's always been issues both parties working. When you look at some of those, issues that the opposition had, there's also been a high level of corruption. So you can see that you can tell it's obviously issues, but at the same time, it's you can also see that the ruling party, ZANU-PF, is out there campaigning. the opposition has, in the last couple of years, broken up into smaller parties. That doesn't bode well for the electorate, in my view. And obviously now as we meet elections, we start hearing and start seeing people come together to alliances. As a voter, someone who aspires to vote next year, as I did 13, I would like to know what the opposition is coming together, forming these alliances around. What are they coming together for? I'd like to know what the position is on education, what the position is on health, issues like that are very important. Someone like that.
All right, let's hold you there, Nigel. We need to go on a quick break. You're watching Africa Today, and we've been looking at the political developments in Zimbabwe as the opposition parties form alliance to take on the ruling ZANU-PF ahead of elections in 2018. Welcome back. Now, following months of speculation, leader of the Movement for the Democratic Change and Morgan Tsvangirai recently signed an agreement with 6 political parties as a united front to contest the 2018 polls. The move is seen as a significant step towards uniting a variety of anti-Mugabe opposition groups in the country who in recent years have been divided over political interest and strategy. Now, Olainka, following the way things are turning now for the MDC, recently Morgan Tsvangirai was airlifted, to South Africa for, health-related issues and all. But he is still the main challenger against Robert Mugabe. This coalition, brought him as the front runner for this alliance. But what are his chances of unseating the incumbent, knowing that he has a battle for survival at hand?
Well, when you talk about having a battle for survival, I don't think should be an excuse or a major reason for any challenge whatsoever. We all know Mugabe, we saw the last incident that happened to him. It could not even a faction of the ruling party believes that Mugabe is not even fit. Believe that Mugabe cannot even walk on his own properly. So even the so-called incumbent president is not even fit to some of the faction, even in the ruling party. So now coming back to the opposition, for them to feature, well, there's is rumor that he had cancer, as in that's the leader of the opposition.
He said he announced he has colon cancer.
Then he has cancer. Fine, but if it's something that can be managed, but then I still ask, what is wrong with us in Africa? Why is it all about old people coming? Mugabe is 93. By the time, 93, 94, by the time Mugabe, if Mugabe wins by any chance, Mugabe will be 100 by the time he's rounding up the next 5 years. What is wrong with us in Africa? Why do we need to present all these old people? What happened to the so-called youth?
I'm talking about the Zimbabweans, not ready to, change from, the persons that they've known all their life. Would you say it's their fault? Because Mugabe has been there since 1980. So they haven't really seen, so to speak, another leader that they can say, okay, let's take a cue from here. Let's try this other hand.
I think I'll still blame the leadership, because what the leadership has done is to, the leadership had actually worked on its people, on the Zimbabweans, to make them semi-illiterate. Look at what happened in South Africa. When Mandela fought and did all he did, he came in, he was even forced to become the president. 4 years. He took a bow. He left. So now, if the Zimbabweans are saying, yes, because Mugabe fought, the Britain, that he fought the minority white out of Zimbabwe and they got their independence, does not mean Mugabe should die in that office if it's not fit. Meaning, for people to think like that means that they either are not educated, which he has done. He has successfully made them uneducated, so that nobody can challenge him. When you want to come up with anything, it comes up with a sentiment that come after all I did for you. I got you out of this, and it goes with a slogan that Zimbabwe would never be a slave again. Now, these are the things this semi-illiterate wants to hear, and they are backing him. a man of 100 years. So what happened to you? Where are the youth in Zimbabwe?
All right, let me quickly throw that question to Nigel. Nigel, why do Zimbabweans, or let me put it straight this way, why do Zimbabweans believe so much in Mugabe than any other leader?
You know, I want to correct my big brother there. When you look at Zimbabwe, you must understand that we went to war to gain our independence. Now, there are a lot of people who remember, who were alive when we went to war. A lot of people who lost family members and people who never came back. So ZANU-PF appealed to a lot of people because it holds close the ideals of why we went to fight the war in the first place, right? If you look at Zimbabwe as a country, 60% of the population live in the rural areas, right? A lot of those people will remember what happened in the liberation struggle many years ago, right? You must also realize that ZANU-PF has a stronghold in the rural areas. So when you look at us people us urbanites, right? I speak about service delivery, and I want certain things. I want to make sure that if I'm paying for my water bill, that I am receiving the water bill. But when I speak to my aunt who lives in the village, you know what she prioritizes? She prioritizes things like the local MP will attend a funeral in the village. Things that I can't recognize, I don't relate to. I don't care if the MP does come to my funeral or not. I'm interested in certain things. So we've got to understand Zimbabwe at that level, right? It's not an issue of whether we are educated or not. We are a very educated population. A lot of us Zimbabweans are the ones who are running big organizations in South Africa and in the region, right? So that's not the main issue. The main issue is that these guys seem to they resonate with the ordinary person on the street, right? The opposition has influence and its support base mainly in urban areas, but the urban areas is not a large enough population, right, compared to the rural areas, and that is why I don't see the opposition winning the next election. I just don't.
Wow. So what can they do differently so that they can get the desired votes come 2018?
So here's the thing. Look, if you look at the opposition, if you look at Morgan Tsvangirai himself, right? If we were talking, if we were using the British government, you look at the Tories and the Labour Party. If those guys will go to an election, in fact, let me not even go that far. If Jeremy Corbyn hadn't gained the seats that he had in the last election, he would have resigned and we'd have a new leader. But MDC has not had new leadership since the 2000s. So Morgan's been in charge. Morgan Tsvangirai has been in charge since the very beginning, right? When people look at that and they speak about we want to remove Mugabe, some people actually say, well, wait a minute, you guys are doing the exact same thing that you're trying to remove from power, right? So there are people who think like that and believe that Morgan Tsvangirai is also undemocratic. There have been some issues that have happened within MDC itself. So the party is split numerous times, right? And it's only coming 1 year into 1 year before an election to form an alliance, right? Even the process that is taking place in that alliance of which MPs run and which ones don't and whatnot is also not democratic either, right? And ordinary people like me are asking questions about, wait a minute, how are they actually doing it? The other issue also is, do they resonate with the people, to the issues that they speak to? Are they speaking issues that people understand and can come together around? I don't know if they're doing that, right? But also the biggest thing that we need to understand about Zimbabwe is that the people who vote the most tend to be people in the rural areas. Those people will cast their votes or go and register to vote. Us people in the urban areas, we tend to not vote, and there's a lot of voter apathy in this country. So that all that has to need to be factored in. Right now, we have a huge youth population. We do have youth leaders within all political parties. We're now starting to see more prominent youth leaders emerging, some who are independent, people like Fazema area who's joining as an independent here in Harare. You've got people like Limbaye and Blai, who, she's an independent as well. So you're starting to see that crop of youth leaders coming out. I foresee that in 2013, we will see more young people then than we do now.
Well, till then. But let's look at the elections coming up very soon. What would you say should be the best way to ensure that there is a free and credible elections in Zimbabwe, knowing that there are concerns of, rigging by the alleged from the opposition party, that's the MDC?
You know what? Here's the thing. In 2013, they came up and said that the election was rigged. And then, of course, the courts and ZEC and then these of the election body just said, look, if you've got evidence of rigging, show us that evidence. That evidence was not shown, right? You can't start talking about an election is rigged before it happens. I mean, why you're shooting yourself in the foot. I think it's important for people to campaign. I think it's very important for any party to speak about issues. And stick to issues. What I've seen, and I've seen a lot more. I run an online publication. I've seen a lot more. Campaigning by ZANU-PF than I have by other parties. Right? There are lots of small parties. There are about over 50 parties, political parties in this country.
All right.
That doesn't help. That doesn't help the opposition's cause. What that tells me is that various people do not believe in the leaders that are already there, and instead of coming together and saying, look, we're going to create this one huge opposition party that will take on ZANU-PF, that's not happening. So you've got a lot of small guys. You've got people like you've obviously got Morgan Tsvangirai, who's obviously been the leader of the opposition. Within that, there's MDC splinter organizations that have split up, that have now come together. You've got people like Dr. Noah Manyika, who put his hand up for the first time. He leads a party called Build Zimbabwe. You've got
Nigel.
Leaders like this, yeah.
All right, let's leave it for that for now. We'd like to thank you very much for your contributions on the program. Thanks a lot, Nigel Mugame. Well, let's really wrap up the show with you, Daniel. From what he's just said, the issues should be the main focus of the opposition. And of course, it's very unlikely that the MDC will take over come 2018. But let's briefly wrap it up now. What should be the way forward in Zimbabwe? How can people embrace change?
Yes, but before I say that, give me a few seconds to set the record straight, because he corroborated what I said about semi-illiterate with the last statement he made. Who are the people that vote? Are the people that vote, the people that go for all this rally and vote, are they the ones in the same South Africa that are entrepreneurs in South Africa? No, I'm not saying not that people are not educated, but the people that vote, who are they? They are the semi-illiterate that these people can cajole and they can walk around with. That's the reason why he used the word people voting for him as the semi-illiterate. He was able to get that, which an average politicians in Africa, they do that a lot. Now, coming back to way forward, and what the opposition can do. Because as at the last election and the other previous one, like you said, well, they claimed that elections were rigged. But what happened in the end? They couldn't prove it and all that. But I just hope what happened in Kenya also could happen. If election is not free and fair, can Mr. Mugabe just give a room for fair dealings with all parties involved? Let the court do its job. Let the court be independent. If they go to court, let the court be independent. Don't intercept. Don't interject. Don't control the judiciary. Probably it may also lead to Kenya, which we are going to have another election entirely. But if we don't still have that, if Mugabe is still going to be in charge as the president and is going to be the same chairman of the NEC, ZEC, I mean, the chairman of the ZEC, I can tell you, no opposition party would come in to this election. Mugabe will still have the day. But if he's sincere and he wants to do a free and fair and he's not power to, so he doesn't, every politician wants to enjoy the privileges
Indeed.
of being there.
Yeah.
So if it's serious, then opposition also should do their work.
In other words, there should
And
be fair
more
play.
should do their work rather than concentrating on the ruling party. And that's a mistake most of our politicians make. You actually campaign for the ruling party, or you campaign for the other party rather than doing your own, the main job. So I want to advise the opposition should look at themselves. We have 6 parties coming together, so you have all it takes.
Yeah.
You have all it takes to do this job. Talk to your people, campaign, go around the city, go around the nation, get a vote from people, convince them, then come to the table and, well, the said sky is the limit. Then we'll see if you have the flow.
Olayinka Daniels, I'd like to thank you very much for your analysis on the program. Well, heat it up, but thanks a lot.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Now, it has been an interesting political year so far, with Africa witnessing the good, the bad, and the unexpected, where an ongoing ballot-driven revolution shows that position to the privileged, but power belongs to the people. In the coming months, the democratic process will be put to test in Zimbabwe, as many watch to see if the elections will be a repeat broadcast of the past or an event to restore national politics to factory settings. And that is our package for today. But don't forget to join the conversation as usual on Twitter at TVC News NG. And also follow me for updates around Africa at Esther TVC News. Until the next one, I am Esther Mokwariola, and always remember, change starts with you.